Hey everyone, and welcome to a brand new explainer. Today, we're totally dissecting a classic story that actually hides a pretty profound psychological test. We're looking at the Honest Woodcutter as essentially an anatomy of a single life-altering choice. Seriously, what do we do when we lose absolutely everything, and the universe just hands us a shortcut? Let's pull this story apart and see exactly how it ticks. So, our story opens with a stark, undeniable reality. A poor man, a river, a lost livelihood. According to the text, we've got this poor woodcutter, right? He's just out there cutting wood on the bank of a river. I mean, this is hard, grueling physical labor. But suddenly, out of nowhere, disaster strikes. His iron axe slips from his hands and falls straight into the deep water. Now, I really want you to put yourselves in his shoes for a second. This isn't just, dropping your phone or a minor inconvenience. This is a catastrophic, incredibly high-stakes loss. For this guy, his axe isn't just a piece of metal on a stick, it's literally his entire capacity to earn a living. The exact moment that axe sinks below the surface, his whole future goes right down with it. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the woodcutter's tragic loss. To truly grasp the weight of the choice he has to make later on, we really have to look at the sheer desperation of his predicament right here. He is totally stripped of his agency, and the source text describes his reaction with 4 very simple but incredibly devastating words. He cried a lot. It doesn't say he was just annoyed or frustrated. He cried a lot. That points to a profound, deep-seated emotional despair. I mean, without his iron axe, he's staring down absolute ruin. How's he going to eat? How will he survive? This raw emotional reaction highlights his intense vulnerability. He is at rock bottom, completely out of options. Which brings us to Section 2, the golden temptation. Let's move to and see how this builds, because it's exactly at this moment of maximum vulnerability that the universe steps in. As he's sitting there weeping by the riverbank, the inciting incident happens. A fairy emerges straight out of the water. Now think about this not just as some magical fairy tale moment, but as the ultimate psychological stress test. Because the fairy doesn't just hand him his tool back, oh no. She initiates this highly deliberate, escalating sequence of temptation. Step 1, she shows him a golden axe. Just imagine the sheer wealth that represents to a starving man. Step 2, she brings out a silver axe. Still incredibly valuable, still an absolute easy way out of his poverty. And finally, Step 3, his own plain iron axe. This 3-step process, it's a highly calculated escalation, designed to see if his integrity can literally be bought. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is his immediate gut response to that staggering first temptation. When presented with the gold axe and then later the silver one, the woodcutter just says, "No, lady, this is not mine." He outright refuses it. There's this unwavering, almost stubborn rejection here. I mean, he's being offered unearned wealth, basically a literal golden ticket out of a life of backbreaking labor, and he just turns it down. He absolutely refuses to claim what isn't his, even when no one else is watching, and even when taking it would instantly solve every single one of his earthly problems. Moving right along to Section 3, choosing the truth. And this brilliantly illustrates where the massive friction of the whole story lies. We have this incredible tension between the woodcutter's desperate poverty on one hand and his steadfast honesty on the other. Because, let's be real, it's pretty easy to be honest when you have everything you need, right? But it is incredibly difficult to maintain that integrity when you're starving and the absolute perfect solution is handed to you on a silver, or in this case, golden platter. Let's look at these two concepts side by side. Over on the left, we've got the fairy's offerings, gold and silver. This represents instant wealth, sure, but it's ultimately built on a lie. Then, over on the right, we have the woodcutter's reality, iron. This represents hard, grueling labor, but it's firmly rooted in the truth. Taking the left side means totally abandoning his integrity. Choosing the right side means accepting a really difficult life, but keeping his soul completely intact. Finally, the fairy brings out his very own iron axe. And the source text tells us he happily says, "Yes, this is mine." Notice the sheer emotion here. He isn't disappointed that he's stuck with the boring old iron. Actually, scratch that. He's genuinely joyful to see his simple, everyday tool again. For him, true satisfaction only really comes from claiming what is rightfully his. He's perfectly content with his reality, just as long as it's an honest one. So that brings us to Section 4, the reward of integrity. Now, the fairy's reaction turns this from a simple test into a really profound lesson. She isn't just, satisfied that he passed. The text explicitly notes she becomes deeply happy with his honesty. His unwavering commitment to the truth triggers the entire resolution of the story. Because he was truthful, the fairy makes a sweeping, grand decree. He gets his original iron axe back, obviously, but he also receives the gold axe and the silver axe. All three are suddenly his. Talk about a massive, life-changing windfall, right? But the absolute vital takeaway from the text here is that this wealth isn't some random accident, and it certainly wasn't stolen. It is the direct, unadulterated result of his integrity. By completely refusing the lie, he actually earned the ultimate reward.
So, the crucial point is coming up in Section 5, the core moral lesson.
The original source material really doesn't leave us guessing about what we're supposed to learn here. It explicitly lays out the core takeaway, imparting this specific moral. Allah gives everything to those who speak the truth. Based purely on our source, there's a very direct cause and effect equation happening. Unyielding truthfulness, especially in the face of intense hardship and temptation, results in ultimate divine reward. So the story presents honesty not just as like a nice personality trait to have, but as a fundamental cosmic law that yields everything to those who actually possess it.
And that leaves us with a question that I really want to turn outward to all of you. It's one thing to admire the woodcutter in a story, but it's a whole different ballgame to look at our own lives. We all face these moments of temptation, right? Moments where a quick shortcut or maybe a tiny lie could easily solve a massive problem for us. So I'll leave you with this. When faced with your own golden axe, will you have the courage to claim your iron? Definitely think about that the next time you're forced to make a hard choice. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this fascinating narrative today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you in the next explainer.